Hello everyone, this is Renier Castellanos and I'm going to start recording videos for you again. I just took some time to play some tournaments back in Spain, so now I'm back in Canada and I have more time to do these videos. Okay, so the Olympiad took place not so long ago, and there are quite a lot interesting games, but today we're going to analyze a game played between Lasnica and Short. It was played in the 11th round of the tournament. Alright, the game is quite interesting. It's a Catalan opening and it goes d4, knight f6, c4, e6. This is not one of the openings that I play with either color, but recently I've been studying it for a couple of my students, and it is quite interesting, I think. Okay, g3, d5, knight f3, bishop e7. This is all very normal. Bishop g2, and now castle and castle. Okay, black can choose now between the close variation, that means that he could play c6, or he can go for the open line with d takes on c4, which Short plays. D takes on c4, queen c2, and now a6. This is the main line of the Catalan nowadays. For those who have no experience with these lines and haven't read anything about it, well, basically the idea here for black is to push b5 and c5 later. Okay, c5 is the ultimate equalizing move in this type of position. That's what he will try to achieve in the middle game. Okay, white will of course try to prevent this and to put pressure on the c file, mostly, yeah. So after a6, queen takes on c4, b5, the queen returns to c2, and now black plays bishop b7. Alright, so now the main moves these days is bishop d2. Everything is in accordance with the strategy of preventing c5. So bishop d2 makes sense. The bishop is with an eye on a5. So in many variations, the bishop ends up on a5, pinning the c7 pawn, and also it supports the advance of b4. Okay, controlling c5. But it's not the only move. There are also other moves here. For instance, white can try to prevent c5 with bishop g5 and a quick trade on f6, followed by knight d2 and knight b3. This looks like a clean way to prevent it, but it's not very efficient. As you can see, after knight b7, bishop takes on f6, knight takes, and now knight d2. Okay, so after knight d2, rook c8, and black is threatening to play c5 on the next move. So after knight b3, it doesn't prevent it. c5, d takes on c5, and thanks to the pin, black will regain that pawn. Queen c3, bishop d5. Now the threat is knight d4, rook d1, and queen c7. It's impossible for white to hold on to that pawn, so the whole strategy fails. It's not. So this is why. Well, it's not the only why here. I mean, there are many reasons why this move is considered to be the main line nowadays. Also, bishop f4 is another move. But black can play knight d5, defending c7 and attacking f4 at the same time. Okay, so after bishop d2, now short play the move that is not played very often nowadays. That move is knight c6. I believe that this move won't gain any fans anymore, and because basically it leads to positions that are very passive for black. The best would be, I think, knight bd7, and after bishop a5, of course, black can play rook a7, defending the c7 pawn, because when white takes everything on c7, you will have bishop takes on f3, winning a piece because of the rook on a7. So after rook c1, bishop e4, queen b3, and queen a8, these lines, they seem to be okay. So okay, but knight c6, basically the idea is, okay, one of them is to play knight b4, or as in the game we're going to see, queen b8 and rook c8. Also black still can play rook a7 and queen a8. The knight on c6 prevents white from playing bishop a5, but also it's not the best square for the knight, as you can tell, because if you want to play c5, you will have to retreat the knight somewhere. Okay, so after e3, of course, white must defend the d4 pawn. Now short played the move queen b8. Okay, this is a very old move, and it's not the first time that short plays this move. I have to say he played it against Karpov long ago and obtained the draw, and also obtained a very reasonable game in my opinion. But let's see the move knight b4. I want you to see this game. It was very famous at that moment that was played. It was played in 2007 by Carlsen with the black pieces against Kramnik, and black suffered in that game a lot. And you will see when the strategy of c5 fails, how black is left without any counterplay and in a very passive position. After knight b4, of course, white is happy to trade that bishop, especially since he gains an important tempo. After a3, bishop e7, knight d2. So what's the plan now? White wants to play b4, knight b3, and secure the square c5. So rook c8, b4, a5. Okay, taking on a5 is of course out of the question, since black will play c5 and open the position. So Kramnik now plays knight e5. Quite a strong move, because white begins to fight for the c6 square. After the trade of the bishops, king takes on g2, for example, white will have the c6 square for the knight, which defends b4, and basically it's impossible to get rid of the knight on c6. Queen d5 doesn't help. After queen d5, king g1, if he takes on b4, knight c6, attacks e7, defends b4, so white would gain a comfortable advantage in that position. So okay, so after knight d5, Kramnik played knight b3, attacking a5, and it's not about the pawn, it's the square. The knight is jumping to a5 no matter what. In fact, after a takes on b4, he played knight a5, bishop a8, knight to c6, forced to take, knight takes, queen d7, and now bishop takes d5, e takes d5, and pawn takes on b4, leaves white with a much better position. And the most important thing about this position is that they are risk free. I mean, you cannot imagine how black can turn the tables here. If there is any defense, it can only be to achieve a draw. Actually, I don't think there is any defense, and white's play is very simple. He will play rook a5 and put pressure on the b5 and d5 pawns. Rook c1. How can black live with the knight on c6? That's something very difficult. Okay, so actually Carlsen lost in just 8 more moves after rook e8, rook a5, bishop f8, knight e5. White gains material. Rook takes b5, rook b8, trades, and queen takes e7. Bishop d6, rook b8, pinning the bishop, queen d6, and now queen a4, and black resigns right here. This is one of those games that put people away from this variation. Okay, so queen b8, that's the move Short played, and now white went rook c1. Of course, part of white's plan is to put pressure on the c file, especially white wants to control the c5 square and also c6. Okay, after rook c1, black plays rook c8, but let's see other moves to understand black's strategy. For example, it makes sense for white to play a3, and a3 with the idea of b4. Okay, if black continues with rook c8, then knight c3, knight d8, ready to play c5, so white now plays b4, and after a5, rook b1, a takes on b4, takes. Now black can play knight c6, attacking the knight on b4, attacking the pawn on b4, and okay, taking on b5 allows black to play bishop a6, pinning the knight, and queen c6 is nothing because of bishop takes on b5, and the rook on f1 is under attack. Okay, so the game continued with knight a2, rook a6, knight c1, the knight is heading to c5, queen a8, queen d1, the threat was knight takes on b4 and bishop takes on f3, rook a3, and it's not simple for white to bring the knight to c5. You cannot play knight b3 because of the b4 pawn, and knight d3 is no longer possible. Still knight e1, white is threatening knight d3, so black reacts in the center with e5. This is the Karpov's game against Short. Okay, it's a complex middle game, but in general terms, black obtained a decent game. I think he has some activity. For example, after knight c2, rook a4, d5, knight d8, he plays c6 and starts undermining white's center and opening the c file to activate his pieces. So I guess it's a reasonable game for black. In another game, in this same variation, on a3, rook c8, white went knight c3, knight d8, b4, a5, white took on a5, which is also interesting, with the idea of putting pressure on the b5 pawn. Rook b1, queen a8, and now queen d1. Okay, white is happy to trade the a3 pawn for the b5 pawn as long as black doesn't play c5. That c5 pawn, that c5 move is the one that is going to equalize. So black went c6, a4 is the only move, because now with c6 black is threatening to win the pawn. a4, b4, knight a2, rook takes, knight takes on b4, rook takes on a1, and now queen b8, and after knight a6, okay, black is forced to take, surrender the bishop pair. So there is, if the position is open, the white bishops might become strong. And now, of course, black has to go c5, getting rid of that weak pawn on c6, and also to bring the knight back into play. queen a1, and now after c takes on d4, knight takes on d4, you can see that white is better because of the dominating knight on d4, the a file, and the bishop on g2 is quite strong. If you look at the black pieces, the knight on d8 remains very passive. Alright, so after seeing this game, I thought that perhaps after a3 black should try a move like a5, and after looking at this move a little bit, I think it's not sufficient to equalize, because now white can just play knight c3 and you have to defend b5, and this gives white opportunity to play e4, and e5 is next. Even after b4, white will play e5, b takes on c3, e takes on f6, and I believe after the complications white will be better. So to sum it up, a3 seems another reasonable move. Okay, Abruk, the great expert in the Catalan opening, recently in his book he mentions another way to get a slight advantage is by playing knight to e1, attacking the c6 knight, pretty much forcing knight b4, and after bishop takes, knight d3, the knight attacks the bishop and controls c5. So after bishop g2, king takes on g2, queen b7, king g1, bishop d6, and now knight d2, followed by rook c1, and black is unable to play the free move c5. Okay, so white keeps a small advantage in this case. Okay, I believe the edge is very small, but is still an edge. It's a safe position, and those who like positional play would be very happy to play this position with the white pieces. Alright, so back into the game. After queen b8, white played rook c1, rook c8, and now a3, of course with the idea of b4. Okay, one thing here, it is also possible to play knight e1, okay, and actually has been played before. There is one game from 1983 in which white uses this move, and after knight d8, knight to d3, controlling c5 again. Bishop e4, this move seems not good. Bishop takes, knight takes, and bishop b4, and white seems to have a small advantage. As long as black doesn't play c5, the knight on d8 remains very passive, and white's pressure on the c file starts to tell. Okay, so a3, and now short played a6. Now I think perhaps it's a good moment to consider the move a5, and let's consider some moves for white. If knight e1 now, there is knight d8. And after knight d3, black can play bishop takes on g2, king takes on g2, and queen b7 check. And there are a few differences now. For example, after king g1, black can play knight e4. And it's not easy anymore for white to prevent c5. I mean, that is coming next, and also there are some ideas with knight g5 threatening knight h3 or knight f3. So I believe this position shouldn't be so promising for white. And also if he plays a move like f3, then this weakens a little bit the pawn structure. It's not the same anymore, and black can just play knight d7, aiming to play c5 on the next move. I mean, the whole idea of white is to prevent c5, and also if he's forced to play knight c5, he would like to recapture with a piece, not a pawn, to keep the c file open and to keep the pressure on the c7 pawn. Now probably white doesn't have anything better than knight c5, but taking with the pawn is not part of the plan. So knight e1 doesn't seem to bring white anything clear. The other move could be knight c3, but in this position it's not the same anymore. After knight a7 is important to defend the pawn on b5. e4 doesn't make any sense because black plays b4, and now the thing is that you cannot play e5 because when you take on c3 and you take on f6, black will take on d2 and is threatening to take on c1, and there is no rook on f8 as before, so it's a complete different deal now. Now e4 is not a move. White fails to prevent c5. He can try the move queen d1, getting out of the c file, but then after c5 black has very little to worry about. The idea is of course b4 on the next move and bring the knight into play by knight b5, for example. If knight e2, b4 anyways. And this seems okay for black. I also thought about another move, queen d3. A strange move, but it is attacking the b5 pawn, and at the same time it gets the queen out of the c file. But after b4, bishop e1, black can just play knight to a7 again. And there is no time to play knight d2 and knight b3, so on the next move black will play c5 or bishop e4. Well, not bishop e4 because probably white's move is knight bd2, but just c5, and it seems like black can have a decent game. Okay, so but in the game after a3, short played a6. That move I don't quite understand it. I don't think it's very good. It gives white an important tempo to develop, and after knight c3 there is nothing black can do to stop b4. I mean, black cannot play b4 because white goes then knight a4 and knight c5, so short went knight d8. Okay, it's still similar to that game with Karpov, and it's part of the plan. He wants to play c5 on the next move. And if b4, he wants to open the a file with a5. But there are differences in the position, and you will see how not everything works out for black in this position. After b4 a5, white just plays rook b1, and there is no rook on f1, so black cannot count on rook a3 like in the other game. For example, after a takes on b4, pawn takes, white is actually threatening to take that pawn on b5 because there is no bishop a6, as there is no rook on f1, so there is nothing to pin there. But short played anyway rook a3, and of course white took the pawn on b5. Knight takes on b5. Short was counting on bishop e4, attacking the queen, attacking the knight on b5, and of course white has to move the queen and defend the knight, so he goes queen c4, the only square. And now black plays bishop d3. Of course not bishop b1 because of knight a3. It would be simple position for white, just an extra pawn and a great position with all the pieces very well located, so nothing that black can compensate for. So after queen c4, short played bishop d3, and I guess he was counting on this, but it seems there is a problem with the evaluation of the whole position after white played knight a3, sacrificing his queen. But after bishop takes on c4, knight takes on c4, and we have a small pause here to look at the position. White dominates the entire board. I mean, the black knight on d8 is very passive. White has very strong squares for his knights, for example e5 for the f knight and a5 for the c knight. The bishop on g2 is a monster, and also the material is not a great deficit. Actually, it's just 2 pieces and a pawn. So it's normally this is reasonable material for a queen. So in this position, I believe black is just perhaps losing already. Okay, it's the advantage, I guess, at this level is decisive. Okay, so short now plays queen b5, trying to activate the queen, get it out of the b8 square. Also, it's time to bring the rook somewhere and get the knight out of the 8. And white continues with the plan. All is this type of position. The bad thing is that it's not hard for white to make good moves. I mean, almost anybody can play knight e5. It frees the bishop on g2, prevents all kinds of knight c6, keeps the knight on d8. Okay, so knight d5 and now e4, gaining complete control over the center, forcing the black knight to retreat. After knight b6, of course, knight a5, and white is controlling the square c6. Also the queen, if you look at the black queen, it doesn't have many squares actually. One little touch with bishop f1 and it has to go to e8. Bishop d6, trying to get rid of the powerful knight. Bishop f1 and queen e8. Of course, queen a4 doesn't help because of just rook a1, and he would be forced to play queen e8 anyway. So queen e8 immediately, and now knight d3. Okay, white wants to play knight c5 on the next move and keep putting pressure on the queen side. Knight c5 and knight a6 is a plan to put pressure on c7. If you put a knight on a6, at the right moment white can push e5 and gain the c7 pawn. So f6 was played. It gives some space for the black pieces, get the queen out somewhere, but basically black is not has no prospects in this position. I mean, just trying to hold on, wait for a mistake, but white doesn't make any. After knight c5, rook a8, knight a6, rook a7. The rook doesn't improve much from c8 to a7, but what to do? There are no files, nothing he can do with his pieces. Now b5, securing that position of the knight on a6 and squeezing even more the white pieces. Now at the right moment knight c6 will come. The knight on a6 blockades the a file, so there is no hope that that rook is going to play anytime soon. So black plays queen d7, and white bishop e3 with an eye on the pieces on that diagonal, the knight on b6 and the rook on a7. White is preparing the advance of his center. So black now plays f5, cannot wait anymore, needs some action in this position, try to free himself, but of course not. e5, bishop f8, and now knight c6. Very strong move. After knight takes on c6, now b takes on c6, and now there are already some ideas with a move like rook takes on b6 and c7. Okay, so that's the idea of knight c6, to create that pawn on c6 that is not so far from promoting. For example, after queen d5, the game would be over. After rook takes b6, c takes, and c7, it would force black to sacrifice the rook, and that would be just too much material. Okay, so short played queen c8, and now the final blow. White goes d5. Absolutely beautiful. Black has no choice. That's what's so pretty about all this. After the queen sacrifice, all of White's moves were very simple, very logical, and slowly squeezing the position, gaining more space, putting pressure on the weakness on c7, and now this is just the final step of the plan to create this pass pawn on c6 that will give the win. So after e takes on d5, there is nothing better. On rook takes on a6, white just takes on a6 and later on b6. So e takes on d5, bishop takes on b6. If c takes on b6, rook takes on b6 with the threat of rook b8 and c7 in either move order, doesn't matter. So black took with the rook on a6, and now bishop takes on a6. Queen takes, bishop takes on c7. Now it's just a matter of playing bishop d6 and c7 c8. Black went bishop a3, and now it's funny how okay, white played rook a1, anything wins, but the simple move bishop d6 just wins, because it's impossible to prevent c7. After bishop c1, black can just play rook b8 check to control c8, king a7 and c7, and there is no perpetual check. For example, after queen e2, just c8, queen e1, and now all white needs to do is to change the color of the square. For example, after queen e4, king f1, and if queen d3, king g1, queen d1, king g2, and there are no more checks. Same would happen if queen h1 here, after king e2, queen e4, queen d1, there are no more checks, and the bishop, well, there are checks, but it would just force white to take the c1 bishop. So okay, so he played rook a1 and queen d3, and only now bishop d6. And after bishop c1, rook takes, queen d2, bishop a3, and short resigns. Okay, c7 and c8 on the next moves. And okay, this is it. This is the end of the game. Both of the players, you may not know Victor Lasnica. He's from Czechia, and okay, he's a very strong grandmaster. His rating is 2690 right now, and Short's rating is also 2690. It's a very interesting battle. The whole line in general seems a little bit dubious to me. Very passive, and it's just what the Catalan player wants, to have this control over the c file, and to have all the time in the world to play a3 and b4. It seems a little bit too slow for me as black, I think. Okay, everybody, I'm very glad to be back doing videos again, and I see you again next week with a new video.